Hello everybody, today we're talking about informational texts and media, and we're going to learn how to analyze and evaluate them. And today we're focusing on analysis. So, what is analysis? Analysis is the process of breaking a complex topic or substance into smaller parts to gain a better understanding of it. That's from Wikipedia. Or, the separating of any material or abstract entity into its constituent elements. This process is a method of studying the nature of something or of determining its essential features and their relations, from dictionary.com. So you can see by both of these examples that analysis involves breaking something apart and looking at each feature of something. That's what we're going to do today with different types of media and informational text, breaking them down so we can get the full amount of information from them as possible. The first step to analyzing an informational text or media of any sort is looking at thesis and main points, or main ideas. Now obviously this won't apply to certain types of information and media, like an image won't necessarily have a thesis and main idea. But in most text or even video, we can have a thesis and main idea. So let's look at the article that you've already read. This one on gun measures. So one good thing about informational text is they're usually written very clearly, so it's very easy to pick out the main ideas. For instance, in this one, and in a lot of news articles, the first sentence here is basically our thesis. So this one says, gun control measures that seem destined to become law after the school shootings in Newton, Connecticut are in jeopardy amid a fierce lobbying campaign by firearms advocates. This is basically our thesis. The rest of this article is going to talk about how these gun control laws are being stalled in Congress. For main ideas for informational text, you want to look at the main important points that the text is going to tell you. And highlighting this, literally actually going through and highlighting as you read an informational text or on your second read of an informational text, can really help you understand a text better and not get you bogged down in all the different information it gives you. So one important point that I chose as a main idea here is what they're actually talking about. Here's the main idea: universal background checks on gun purchases. That's one of the major ideas being pushed through, one of the laws that they're trying to get passed, so it's important to know that. Moving on in the article, some other main points might be here, talking about how that it's been 100 days since Sandy Hook, and that's what started these laws trying to be passed. And also that President Obama has not been able to use Sandy Hook and the leverage that it's gained for these kind of bills to be able to pass these laws. So there's another main idea we might highlight. Another one, this point is about why the sides disagree. That is another really important point when you're trying to deal with this kind of thing. So they disagree whether private sales of firearms, such as those between family members or neighbors, would be exempt, as well as how or whether records would be kept. So you see that the point of this highlighting is so that we can go back, and if we just read the highlighted parts, we would get the important information of this article instead of having to read through the whole thing again. So we have information, the thesis, that these laws are having trouble being passed. We have why they were trying to be passed in the first place, and why they disagree. So those are some very important points to point out in this article. So after you identify your thesis and main points, there are some other things you might want to look at. One being structure. So the structure of an informational text, understanding that structure can really help you understand the text better. There are 4 different structures we want to look at. First is problem solution. And guys, these are pretty easy and pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to review them with you just in case. So problem solution, the article or whatever type of text it is will identify a problem and then present ways to solve it. So a problem like mass shootings, and then they might put forward a certain way to solve it, whether it's gun control or better mental health care. Something like this would be a problem solution informational text. Another way to organize and structure
This is Melgard. Please.
is comparison contrast. And what this does, it groups ideas according to their similarities or differences. So this might be an article comparing a ban on weapons versus more freedom of weapons, and what the similarities and differences are between those. Next can be cause and effect. So this shows how one event causes another event. For instance, this chart talking about mass shootings, and it goes through all the different things of the media and what they say about mass shootings, all the way down to going to gun control. And then it goes to no matter which way, if they go to we need guns or we don't need guns, nothing happens and there are still mass shootings. So this shows that media interference as well as lack of action is a cause for more mass shootings. And last is sequential. So sequential organization presents events in the order in which they happened. So this will show something similar to like a timeline. So for instance, this graphic or an article about mass shootings that's presented in sequential order would take shootings by years and talk about them that way. Besides structure, we can talk about format. Format for informational text and media, there is an infinite number of possibilities. We have documentaries, news articles, lab reports, videos, interviews, political cartoons, images, academic journals, and advertisements, as well as lots of other things. There's really no way to cover every single type of format for informational text and media. But the important thing to know about format is that you have got to look at how the format affects the message. So for instance, a video, because it gives you real life footage and images, might be more emotionally provoking than, say, an interview. News articles perhaps might be more objective than an opinion piece. Political cartoons can only show so much. They can't explain lots of details about a problem, but they might very effectively show one detail. So you really have to look at the format that an informational text is presented in and think about ways that that format affects the message. And we'll go over different types of formats of informational text and media in class so that you can see the differences. Now, graphics are also extremely important. It's very important to be able to understand graphics like charts or graphs, but it's also very important to understand how graphics affect a text. So let's look at an example. Here is a chart about gun homicides and gun ownership, and here's another one. This is from the same source, and we're going to see how different these two charts are. Both of these charts show factual information, but showing one versus the other could be extremely affecting your message. So this first one, this side shows gun homicides per 100,000 people. So how many people were killed with guns in each of these countries. This shows how many guns people own per 100 people. So you see over here that United States, this graph shows that United States has, in this array of countries, has the most guns per person, per 100 people. So the most guns, basically. And that it has not very many, in comparison to these countries, gun homicides. So more guns and less deaths. So at first glance, this might look like an argument for gun ownership, that it prevents deaths. As we maybe take a closer look at this though. One way that we need to understand graphics is to make sure we analyze and make sure we know what we're looking at. So if we look at the countries that have fewer guns in their countries but higher deaths, we need to take a look at them and see what they are. We have things like El Salvador, Jamaica, Guatemala, Swaziland, Colombia. All of these countries have some major issues going on with them other than gun control and ownership of guns that might cause these kinds of homicides. If we look at this next graph, this one is showing the same stuff, gun homicides versus gun ownership, but it's only showing industrialized nations. So kind of more modern industrialized nations. So you see here that the United States still has the most guns, but it has way more incidences of gun violence than all of the rest of the industrialized nations. The only one that surpasses us is Mexico. And we all know that Mexico has its own issues it's dealing with drug cartels and everything else. So you can see that this chart presented in the midst of an informational text might show or might lead some people to believe that higher gun ownership usually leads to more gun deaths, while the other one might show, when people just look at it, that higher gun ownership leads to less gun deaths. So even though both of these charts, both of these graphs are correct, they show completely factual information. Showing one or the other of these charts in a text can really add or detract from an argument for either side. So again, it's important to both understand the graphs themselves, be able to analyze a graph when it's given to you, and be able to understand how a graph or a chart supports or detracts from an informational text. So remember, when analyzing informational text, you want to look at thesis and main points, structure, format, and graphics.